Chapter 7. I'd ridden my father's horses before, of course, but always with a saddle. Lucas's donkey was bareback, which made riding him somewhat like staying balanced on two legs floating down a bubbly river. By the time we reached Milda's home, the bruise on my backside would match those on my ankle, and I'd neither sit nor walk for a week. "Where did you come from?" Lucas asked. I shrugged, which was all the answer he was going to get. I didn't want to talk to him any more than was necessary, and certainly not to tell him anything about me. If he were one of Rusakov's spies my father had told me about, then I wouldn't be foolish enough to give myself away, or at least make things worse than they already were. "You know, there's a story for a girl like you," he said. "Once upon a time, there was a girl named Rue." "Rue? That's what my father calls me." Then my shoulders sank. "Used to call me." "Yes, but this was actually her name." Lucas cleared his throat, then continued. "Rue was the daughter of a wealthy man and a very special girl because she could do magic. For this reason, the snake that lived on that same land wanted the girl for himself, so she could do magic at his bidding. One day, the wealthy man was injured when his cart overturned on him. The snake said, 'I will save you, but you must give me your daughter.' And it was the only way to save his life." The man reluctantly agreed. I found myself smiling as Lucas spoke. I'd heard similar stories from my mother all my life, though never one quite like this version. The snake went on to a bear that lived in the nearby forest and threatened to bite the bear if the bear did not help him free the trapped man. "I will help you, snake," said the bear, "but when the man gives you his daughter, you must let her choose between us. Choose which of us she prefers." The snake agreed, for he was certain the daughter would never take the side of a bear. "I wouldn't choose either one," I said. The expression in Lucas's eyes warned me to let him finish the story. The man was freed, and the next morning he brought his daughter into his fields to choose between the snake and the bear. Like you, Rue wanted nothing to do with either of them, but her father warned her that if he did not keep his promise, the snake might bite them and the bear might eat them. I screwed up my face. How awful! Well, it wouldn't be if Rue weren't so clever. She told the snake to swim up the longest river in Lithuania, and if he were her choice, she would meet him at the end. She told the bear to run to the deepest part of the forest, and if he were her choice, she would meet him at the end. The snake immediately began swimming farther and farther north until one day he swam right out of Lithuania. "And what of the bear?" I asked. "He waits there still, hoping one day she will come." Lucas glanced back at me. He knows he was tricked, but he believes if she comes, she will be a most valuable friend. "That's a lovely story," I said. "I've never heard that one before." "There are many more stories to be told of Rue's adventures," Lucas said. "Perhaps I can tell you more of them one day." "You won't have time, I'm sure," I said. "You must have a family who needs you, or someone you work for." Lucas only shrugged. "My family doesn't want me and certainly doesn't need the sort of help I might offer them. And I work out here for Ben, though he doesn't exactly pay me. Making money is hardly my concern, though. If I have a bite of food each day and I'm on my feet each morning, then I have enough." So he was sort of a thief then, maybe living on his own for some time, considering how comfortably he moved about these woods. I said, "Someday you'll have to learn to work a proper job instead of wandering through the forest on some mysterious errand for a person named Ben." He snorted. "So says the girl who I found wandering through the forest carrying a bag of tricks and a mysterious package." I rolled my eyes but remained silent. He'd made his point. Lucas stopped and turned to face me. His eyes flicked between my bag and my confused expression. "So what's in that package?" When I hesitated, he added, "Oh, you don't know what you're carrying." "Where did you get it?" My eyes darted away. Officer Rusakov had called my parents criminals, and this package was obviously evidence of their crimes. Evidence of my crimes now, I suppose. And before long, Lucas continued walking again, whistling a tune as he went. "You shouldn't do that," I said. "The Cossacks." He stopped again, and this time the expression in his eyes was far more serious. "Have you had trouble with them?" Again, I refused to answer, but he said, "I make a point of traveling where the soldiers do not. But they'll come if they believe you have something to hide." He glanced back. "Do you?" Another pause then. "Was your trouble with the police or with the border guards?" "Border guards?" I sat up straight. "I've never gone near the border." "Well, you should sometime. It's beautiful there. Even prettier across the border in Prussia." "I have no papers to cross the border." Why should papers matter? He chuckled again, but it sounded forced this time, as if too much truth was hidden behind his words. That made me suspicious. If talk at the border made him nervous, there was good reason for it. Although my home was far from the border, that was another of my father's rules. Never get close to the border. The only people there were either challenging the law or worse, they were the law. Hundreds of years ago, the borders of Lithuania had been very different. Many of the countries around us now used to be one kingdom known as the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. But one bite at a time, chunks of our land were conquered or claimed by other countries, including Lithuania Minor to the west. That area had been absorbed into Prussia and was now controlled by the German Empire. The rest of our land was controlled by Russia, under the rule of Tsar Alexander III, and whichever governor he'd installed lately to keep his thumb on us. This was done through the enforcement of his Cossack soldiers who patrolled the land. Get in their way, and the luckiest thing that might happen was a stiff beating. It only got worse from there. Just the week before, my mother had spoken of people from my village who had disappeared, their last known act being some small defiance of the Russian laws we all hated. Our priest had disappeared a year earlier for having preached his sermon in Lithuanian. Now both of my parents were gone as well. Lucas had become silent again, and I was grateful for it. After a while, he reached into the satchel at his side and pulled out a handful of fried cheese curd cakes. My mouth immediately watered for them. I liked mine best when they were fresh out of the pan and served with a little jam, but they were delicious any way I could get them. Lucas ate 3 before he turned around and held one out to me. Want one? I shook my head, but he only smiled and tossed it onto my lap. Of course you do. They were made last night. I picked up the ball of cheese and popped it into my mouth, closing my eyes to savor the taste. When I'd finished, I asked, "Where did you get them? You don't look like you have any money to buy them." Not a ruble to my name, but it doesn't matter. The cheese was a gift. A gift? My eyes narrowed. The way he'd said it suggested it wasn't a gift in the traditional meaning of the word. Now Lucas was the one who preferred not to answer. He merely shrugged and turned forward again, but he didn't need to say anything. He obviously didn't trust me any more than I could trust him. "Are you a thief?" I asked. He glanced back and his smile returned. "Not exactly, though I'll steal if necessary. But I'd think that of anyone, you'd understand." My spine stiffened. I didn't know him and he didn't know me. Shouldn't know me. I assumed he was thinking of my card trick and wondering if I used that skill for criminal activity, which, of course, I never would, other than using it just now to make Lucas help me deliver my illegal package. Lucas seemed to know the package was illegal too, which meant he was making guesses about me that simply weren't true. And if any of my guesses about him were correct, then I had to be on my guard. As soon as this package was delivered to Milda's home, I would get as far from Lucas and his dangerous life as I could, and as quickly as possible.